right, good morning, my friends. It is Monday, November 6th, 2023. Let's go ahead and do a quick review from Friday, and then we'll jump into the pre-market for this morning. So, very quickly here, first of all, nice parry right off of the close of Friday here, coming into the open. But let's go ahead and take a look and see what do we have. Plans of action on Friday. Coming into a strong market, there were some potential bearish signals from the highs. A lot of times that is a situation that we deal with, right? We don't really get confirmation of these potential bearish signals until price can get down below some of the key levels we have, right? But we did start to get some of that. Using the moving averages and daily power levels, that will help you to determine direction today. If price starts to pull back, right? Once we could start to get down through some of the moving averages, some of our power levels, that was going to give us a stronger indication of direction coming into the open, or once the market opened. Staying above the previous daily low would be ideal for the bulls. If bears can get priced down below some levels and down through here, this is some things we want to do. On the flip side, if the bulls continue to push, we have some heightened zones of heightened contention around 4,400 to 4,403, 4,430, 40, all these levels we never got to. And then if price does get above 44.83, that opens us up to test the high of the year. Okay, now there isn't a level up above there I'm going to talk about today. That's also really strong, about 10, 15 points away from there. But let's take a look and see going down onto the 512, how everything played out. Now Friday, if I recall correctly, was a little bit messy. We did push to new highs, right? Ever so slightly out of the open here. I think we got just about, a 30-point push higher, which is, again, we were in the context of a strong bullish market. And I told you guys, if we get down through some of these key retracements we watch and some of the daily power levels, including the close of the day before, the holy orange power level, 50% of the day before, that would start to give us clues to now be bears, right? But obviously everything was still very strong. So here's the open here, this vertical line, 9:30 Eastern. The market rode the FMA pretty much all the way up right into our first level of contention. Well, technically, the first level of contention was our scaffolding here, right around 63.75. And notice right before the open, we got the pullback. And then right out of the open here for just a little while, the bulls kind of had trouble. Basically, you got three little short time frame tests of the contention area, and then it broke out, right? And then we came right to the next level of contention on our charts, our next scaffolding level, started to peter out, and then we got a peek through, and then came right back to it, and we failed. And that actually is a very short time frame head and shoulders pattern, right? We talked about that a couple of weeks ago in our weekly webinar. There's your shoulder, there's your head, there's your shoulder, neckline basically somewhere right around here. And then they got down through it, tagged it to the tick, and began to pull back. However, it wasn't necessarily the perfect straight line, right? So it started to fail from our first level of contention after we failed from the first one here before the open. And then came down, got an opportunity now. Once you saw your crossover, once you saw us get this kind of short time frame head and shoulders pattern right off of the scaffolding level, could have tried a short right off the 200 and potentially grab a trade within, say, the first hour of the open there for the bearish side of things, right? Short time frame stuff in the context of a strong bullish market. I think you might have gotten about 5, 6, 7 points out of it and then came right back. Of course, they did not make it easy. I think that was probably a nice 61.8 retrace right there, nearly to the tick. And then they continued back to further pullback. And then interestingly enough, we found some temporary support right around that previous area of resistance. Now it became support. Again, same thing, scaffolding. And then this should have been really all you needed to see about an hour and a half after the open here to confirm the bias that we had, which was being inside of a strong bullish market with some bearish clues off the highs. Okay, so on the pullback, it held VWAP and it held it 2 ticks above it. Again, sometimes that's just how it is. Sometimes the market holds a level, but it holds it a tick or two away. If you were trying to wait for the actual tag of that level, you would have missed out. Sometimes it comes right into it, right? Sometimes we peek into it just a little bit, and sometimes they miss it by 1 or 2 ticks. That's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. So it held VWAP, and then from there we did push to new highs for the day, right? So again, it's not necessary. It's not typically it's not a straight line, right? So you get your first parry out to come up and make a new high compared to that previous swing, and then we get the pullback right to the scaffolding, and it holds this time. And this begins the push. And again, this is why I tell you guys, if you're using our market scaffolding levels, you can basically just use your market scaffolding levels and trade around them, so that when we ended up holding a level, it's then a push to the next level. And if that can get breaks and we can get above it, usually you get your pullback to it, and we push up to the next area of potential contention, right? So here is your perfect hold at VWAP, hold, tagging it to the tick, and then I believe this is the beginning of the next push to kind of peter out right around our first major contention level there, right? And then what do you know? It pulls back and holds it near to the tick in some instances here, or nearly to the tick, and then come up. And the high of the day was 3 ticks from our next expected resistance. So if you ask me, in terms of just looking at the price action, looking where the major rotations occur, they're still happening right off of our key roadmap levels, right? But it was a little bit messy, if you ask me, on Friday. They kind of peaked through a little bit more than normal. They miss out by a tick or two on our main key pullback level. You know, they come back, they pull into the scaffolding, kind of go through it, and then we miss the high of the day by a couple ticks. And then you also get this really violent push through by about 5 points right there. So you kind of, they take out maybe some shorts, and then they hold and go, right? They come down, they hold it for the bulls, then they peek through it for about 4 or 5 points, and then bring it back up. So it was a bit messy, but still basically nailing the major rotations of the day, right? So you could have shorted out of the open off our first area, you could have bought the next area or off the VWAP, and you could have then bought the pullback to then try targeting up to our next contention area. Hopefully, if you're following my strategy, taking profit, not at the level, but just in front of it, maybe a point and a half, and you would have gotten the high of the day. Okay, so coming into the open here on Monday, Globex session, very, very, very tight, very balanced, not really a nice big range, and we haven't been able to break outside of that final price action leg that we got on Friday there, right? We got this nice little sell-off, and so far we haven't been able to get through to the upside or the downside from there. So we're kind of stuck inside of Friday's price action. Looking at what happened here on Sunday's Globex coming into our pre-market here on Monday. Again, once the market got below VWAP, you had an opportunity here and here to get short. And then once the market got back above it here in Sunday's going into, around maybe midnight Eastern here on Sunday, you got an opportunity to buy the top end of VWAP and capture this whole 10, 12 point bounce, or maybe 15 point bounce that we're getting right now. So coming into the open in our pre-market, notice we got a healthy pullback right to the 50% retracement of this overnight leg, which happened to be the previous daily close to the tick. Right, so now somewhat of a bullish interpretation of this overnight chop that we're in right now is we held our, perfect 61.8 retrace, not 50. We're holding the 61.8 retrace of our overnight leg. That is a bullish interpretation, of course, up until the point where we fail. Like we're failing right in front of the overnight high. Not great sign for the bear or for the bulls, right? So if this starts to pull back, we end up getting down below here. This might be the beginning of a failure of this little bullish potential we're in right now. Anyway, that's kind of going into our pre-market for this morning. So that basically wraps up the review for Friday here and the overnight session coming into this morning. Again, some great plays in the overnight off the VWAP here, even on this pullback, to try to see if the bulls would defend and pop back out. Didn't quite get anywhere, but you would have had a good opportunity there as well. And now, as you see, pull back right to it as well, 1 tick away. for this little micro bounce. So anyway, kind of rambling here. Let me get into our pre-market for this morning. So let's pull up our